So hi everybody and welcome back to the C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 64 and in this video we learn scope and what scope means with variables. Actually, let's make an example. Let's declare fast a variable as today string my name and I call my name coder. So we declared a normal variable and we start to learn a scope, and scope has to do something with local variable, global variable, and so on. And let's try to learn what does this mean and how we can use them. So first of all, we learned in general till now that we start here with int main, and the int main got this curly brackets, and these curly brackets are very important, but not only with int main, in general. So this between these curly brackets, it is called a local scope. Why? What means a local scope? Let's make an example. Let's try to print out this declared variable. Very simple and straightforward. std cout. Okay, I use my name, and because I should use this side as well. And then I print this out. And we see, yes, it works. That was what we expected, right? I have defined it here, the declaration of these variables and the assignment, and I use this print out statement as well in the between this curly brackets. So let's create an if statement and see what happens when we define this name in this if statement. So let's see, I make here if true. You can write here just like this. And if you write if true, it is almost all time true. And important here is you see this if statement got also this kind of curly brackets, but careful, there is also an if statement which is not using this. This is the shortcut if statement. And I said as a beginner, use this curly brackets here, and that's very nice now because now we see where we have scope. And what I mean with that is this one is considered here outside for the int main is considered local and belongs only to this main. But if you write something like a if statement like I did here, now we have new curly brackets, and which means what you write here is local and belongs to this if. So let's make an example. Let's continue with our example. And what I want to do now is I put this name, what I have in int main, now here. Let's do it. And what I save it, I do it. And now I want print out this name here, my name. Let's see what happens. And we see a compiler error. And the compiler says my name undeclared. So before it worked, and now I put it here in the string, it is not working. It says undeclared. And this error message, which you can see here, has to do something with scope and local and global. And what we learn is this one is here a local scope for int main, and we are trying to use this my name here, but in this scope here it is not declared. It can't see it. It checks first. I can't see it, can't see it, can't see it. Then it goes to if, and it is skipping this block because it has not access to this curly brackets here, because this one says you can't go in here, so go on, and then it checks and says I can't find this my name. So it will check first where it is called, and it is called between this int main start point, and it will complain when it can't find, like in this case. So how we can solve this, because now it is this variable name is now local to this if. Easy solution would be, like I did before, you put it back to the to the brackets where it can see it again. For example, I put it here, I declare it here. Now it will go here down and say, okay, I found in this scope this declaration, because it checks this two and say what I can find here. I found this, then it goes here, here, and then it says, okay, I found a if, but I have no access to this one. I skip this block here and then go here, here, and then it says now I can print out this name because I found it here on top in this scope here. And all time when we talk about scope, remember these curly brackets, they are very helpful and an indicator, but like I said before, sometimes they use this if statement without this curly brackets. There is also a scope, but harder to see, right? And that's why I said use as a beginner all time this curly brackets with this if statement. Don't use the shortcut. So let's continue. We are not finished. There is one more thing, or even more things, but let's talk about two more things. So what is that? Actually, we have wrote all our code till now between int main, and today we learn to write our variables outside of int main. For example, I take this declaration outside of int main. So what happens here? Wait a minute, I put it outside, and outside we have no curly braces. You see, I said you have just to focus to find the scope about this curly braces, and then you know in which scope you are. For example, when I close this one, you can see this int main, this braces here indicates all what you write here belongs to me, right? Here this starts here, and here this if, when I close this one, all what you write here between belongs to my local scope here, to if. And the problem is now when I write it outside of this int main, there are not curly braces. So what happens there? What is that? We never talked about this really. And when I start this game, is this working at all? What do you think? And it is working. So what happens here? Why is this working? So there is something called a global scope in C++ programming. And the global scope means it is referring to this on top, to the CPP file. And when you write it outside and on top of the, for example, of the page, and then this one will be considered as a global scope. And global scope means you can access it from all places within this CPP file, which means this coder I can access here. I can use now this my name variable. For example, I can say my name, and I can rename it here. For example, coder is coder renamed. Now this variable is renamed, and I can access it now here between this one, and again I take this name, my name, and write coder renamed again. So you see, a global variable we can access all time. It works not the other way around. For example, this local variable, if it's declared not assigned, only declared here, I can't access it on the other side. So let's make a little bit more suitable examples. Let's say we have now one more example. Let's make here again a if statement, which is cool. Let's write true. Or let's make a switch statement. There was this switch statement which I forget to tell you in the exercise. That's also very nice. Let's make this one. This one we don't need. Let's don't need. We learned now we can access this variable outside. But yeah, let's make first the switch statement example. Switch, and the on switch I have again this curly braces, right? We see again this curly braces, and this indicates again local scope. But the switch statements are a little bit special because we have not only a switch statement, we have also this case statements, right? Let's write here something new. And let's write this time the variable which we are going to declare on top. And write it std, for example, int. No, this time I write just a int. And I write my condition number, and I assign it a default value of 0. And I write this condition number here, my condition number, like we learned it. And then I write here, for example, 0. And then we learned it that we make this colon here, it jumps on top. And then we could write something std cout. And we, let's say, print out my name. Print out this string, my name, here on top. So this was what we learned so far. Then we write a break, and we can stop here. Actually, we could also write up more cases, which would also make sense. Let's make here first this one, and then copy this one. And then we have this one. Let's copy a little bit more cases. Let's make here one more case. So we learned this so far, but there was a problem, right, in this exercise which I showed you. It works not so well. And what was the problem here in this case, in the switch statement? We have actually one more, let's say, local scope which is not really visible, and this local scope starts here after this colon. So for example, let me rewrite this code a little bit. And yes, we learned it not, but from now on it's better to use here as well as this curly braces. But before we use it, I show again what the problem is. You can declare after this case many codes as much as you want, right? The problem is if you try to declare here a variable, that was the problem also in our exercise, and for example, my new number, something like that, and then you assign it, for example, also the start value. And then the problem is when we started here, we get a compiler error, and it says initialize my new number is skipped by case label. And the problem here is because this one is let's say you need to write a scope, and a scope means a local area for this case, so it can consider what code should be considered for this case here. And the way you are going to do is again with this curly braces. So you could get this one, and you create a scope for this case. And these curly braces are creating all time. It's also called a block. A block means now all what you write between curly braces is considered to be local and belongs to the one who is calling it, or it belongs to nothing. Can belong also to nothing. That's another interesting example which we are going to do in a moment. And now what we have here, when I compile this one will show no errors. And what I made here is I created first a switch. The switch starts from here to here as a definition, and all what you write belongs to this switch. But here you create another local area, and this one what you write here belongs only to this case here. So what I mean with that is I said that you can use in a switch statement this not break, right? Let's skip this. What happens then when we skip this break, and let's say we use the condition number here, not 0. Let's make it we make it 0. That's good. But we have on this condition number not a 0, not a break, which means it will go also to this case 1. And let me show you what a problem we have here. And let's say instead, that's also good. I want print indeed. No, that's not good. I want print out not my name here. I want print out now this my new number. And let's say if we can do this, my new number. Of course, you can see it. We can't do it. And why is that so? Why we can't do this? Why we can't print my new number? I said before, when we write it here in this scope, in this block, we can see it. The problem is, again, all time think about this curly brackets. Here I defined again new curly brackets, and it says now all what you write here or declare new variables are only visible in this brackets, which means you are calling it later here. I can't see it because I check this one here, will check only this one, and after it finds not here, it will try to check the next curly brackets out of curly brackets here, and if it can't find it here, it will check the global scope, which means this is the CPP file scope on top. So, and let's make this example. Let's see. Okay, you can't check me. So what is if I write this one outside? So I take this one. Right now it's not accessible. Okay, I take this here. I write it this time outside of this. No, this is not allowed, I think. Let's go, we write it here in the scope of this int main now, right? And then you can see it, and let's skip this if here, because we are here now. And you can see now we are in the scope of int main. And when I talk about scope, it's all time this two curly brackets. And now we test it. And yes, it worked. This time, this my number, it checked the condition here. My condition number jumps in 0, 0, says as they say out my name is actually coder, and then it jumps here to this case, and then my new number. And my new number is what? My new number 0, was it with 0 there? Code there, and then 0, and then again coder. Okay, why it's again coder? Because I put here again my name out. So this is working, that's fine. All right, so let's make some more examples with the scope. Then we have it, I think. One more example is, so let's say it's so. When you think about scope, all time start with the curly brackets where it is defined. For example, this variable is defined within this curly brackets, which means this curly brackets can use this variable name. But if, for example, like our example here with the switch statement, can't find it in its scope, here this my new number, it's not in his scope. What I mean with that is, here you check first the curly brackets of the switch statement, and in this case this one has not even a scope. For example, I said from now on write this switch statement with this curly bracket, so it makes a little bit more easier. Now we have our first scope. It will check, can I find this variable in my scope, which is here. And you can all time see the scope here. Also, if you can close this one, it's indicating this here is indicating it's my scope. And it will check this variable. Can I find it here? No. Then I go outside of my scope. I check other places, and if I can find it there. And in this case, it would check this one here. I think we have made this before, this example, so I don't need to make it again. And then it goes out and check this scope, one outer scope, and says, okay, I check if I can find it here. Yes, I can find it. And if it could not find here, it would check here also on the another place. But here is one important thing. Let's make perhaps an easy example, not to confuse too much. This is important. Let's go back to our if example. It's very easy. True. Let's make a very simple scope here. And I have my int number std out, and I want print out my name. So I want to make here an easy example, because now we make another very interesting thing. We have to talk about something which is also very important with scope. So the point what we are going to do talk now is declaring duplicated variables. So we know that duplicated variables are not allowed in programming, right? So for example, I have this name here, and let's say I copy this one, I wrote it down, and now I have a duplicated variable, and this time it is the scope, no curly brackets here, but it is the scope of the CPP file here, which means the whole document here, which means I can access it from all places here. The problem is this is duplicated, right? And when I start this programming, it will complain. It says here as an error, my name, yes, redefinition. Redefinition means I have tried to declare it again, right? Here, and assigned it a new value, multiple initialization. Yeah, we made it. We initialized it again with coder. And that is not allowed. So, okay, it's not allowed. We learned that, we know that. But interesting is now what I'm going to do now. I jump to this if statement. I jump here and I use this one here, what I wrote down as a redefinition here again. And now I have a problem. And the problem is, let me deselect this one and start. We expect our arrow, right? And no arrow. We have no arrow. Wait a minute. We learned that a variable should be not redefined, right? Why I can use here a redefined variable? And that has to do again something with scope. And the scope says as long as it is local and it is local to the place, you can use any variable names again as long as they are not conflicting each other. What I mean with conflicting is, let's say I try to print out this name again, right? Let's use this one here actually. Let's cut this out and put it here. So I put it here this time. I try to use this my name. The problem here is, now I have here a definition, and now I have here a definition. Which one is it using now? And you have all time to think about this curly brackets, which means scope. This one is defined between this curly brackets, which means it will never go into other curly brackets, which means here we have curly brackets too, right? This one will check here. It finds new curly brackets, but this one is a block. I can't go in, but I can go out, which means it starts with this curly brackets. It goes down. I can't go in. It goes down. But before it will go here, it will check. It will say, okay, I found in this local area nothing, but I can go out of this curly brackets and check the next block, which I find. In this case, it is called the global place, because here are not curly brackets, but this one I said it's the global scope for the CPP file, which means the whole file now. That's why we write it on top. And this my name will print out this one here on top. So it will print out, let's call this one here, for example, I don't know, Wonder Woman. Woman, why not? And then we see it codes out coder, and that is very important to consider as a starter, that you learn this scope very well and how to use it, because now you know when you see something and it is redefined or redeclared or reused in the code, then we have check all time the scope, which means this curly brackets, and then we have check what is called. In general, one general rule: don't reuse already declared variable names. For example, if you use here my name, don't use again here my name. That's the easy way, but you see you still can when you use this scope technique. That is more or less a bad thing, I think, when you use the same name, because it can confuse a lot. The compiler will be not confused. He has his definition rules. He knows exactly. It's confused only the programmer. Because, wait a minute, I wanted to use this my name, but it is using now this one, and so on. So, that is one thing. So, one more thing is here. Let's say you wanted access this Wonder Woman here. How you make this one? Of course, you could just take, there are many different solutions. You could print out it here. Instead of printing out it here, you print it out here. Why that? Because I said this statement, this call, and this search here for this variable name will look first where it is defined in the scope. So it will check these two brackets and say, do I find this my name declared here? Oh yes, I found it here. And that means it will not even go out of this curly brackets, because it goes only out here and then here out to this global variable when it can't find it in local scope, which means now Wonder Woman will be printed out because I found it. And here Wonder Woman. And one more thing, let's say Wonder Woman is declared here. That's also very interesting. Careful, it is, and you print it out here. Again, the same rule. It's all time the same rule. This name is declared here. It checks again this scope. I can't find it again here. Then it goes out of this scope. And then it checks here this scope and say, yes, I can find it here. So I will not use this global variable if you define here anything. I don't go here. And then you can see it is checks again. Yes, Wonder Woman is again found. So you see, this is the scope of this thing. And the last thing which I want to talk is one more time. There's much to talk, but at start, I think that was good, but one more thing I have to talk, and this is again this curly brackets, because you can define your own scope. In general, they don't do this. I mean, you can define and use this curly brackets without a name in front, because most time when you see these curly brackets here, they will be bound to a keyword, or they will be bound like here to a function, which indicates this one belongs to this one and it starts a new block. And these curly brackets are also called a block. To create a block. A block means here, you can see it, it creates an area which is local. But interesting is, you can use these curly brackets. Let's make it here very special now. You can create this blocks without names, like so. And this one is not an error, because this is considered to be just a local area here in between. Let's see what happens if I create here a block. Because this is, but in general, you will see not much kind of use case of this one, but it can happen. That's why we are learning this one, because normally they use their all time the normal scope. But now, what have we here? And what have we learned so far? Now, this my name will go out of this scope, what will happen? Do you think it will find this Wonder Woman or it will find Coder? So, think about it. Think just the rule. The rule is, let me follow it and then let's see if it's true. The rule is this one checks first his own scope, okay? Then it goes out of the scope and it is in this scope. And then it checks from top to down if it can find this my name here. And then it goes down, but it finds here this block. And I said this, if it's out of its, it can't enter a block, right? It is in this block, it found this other block and it can't enter it. So with other words, this one will be not found this time. Because it has its own block, it is not defined what this block is. It's just a block, a local area, which means don't use this one here, more or less. And then it will say, I found it not here. I jump out of this block here. So it says this curly brackets, I jump out here. So out of this one and say, oh, I found it on top this time. And when you go to this variable, you can see when you click on it, it's also a very nice hint in Visual Studio or in other IDs. When you click on the variable, it gets this bluish background, blue background and so, and you see on top is also a blue background. It says this variable is found here now. Also a hint so you don't have to start all time. And here, when I go now delete this variables here, this block here, interesting, and save this, and now I click on this one, you see it is connected with this one. This one is found now here because now I go again out of this block and I found you here. So I think I talked already too much about this scope. We will use this a little bit more, and the last thing is from now on we write all our variables in global scope, which is a bad practice. But as a beginner, we do this one. And the reason for that is to learn scope a little bit better. Because at the start, let me say this too, this is very important. Why is this a bad practice and why beginner do this most time? It is a bad practice because if this is a global variable, it can conflict with other files. What I mean with other files, right now we are beginners and we are using only this one CPP file, and that's why it's not a problem. So that's why we will write most variables on top if we want to use it, because we can access it then very easy. Like I said, this one will try to find it here. If it's not finding here, then it will try and find it here. And if it's not trying find it, if it's not finding here, it will jump to the global space, which is here, and it will find it here. And then if you assign here a variable, it will be assigning it here, and it's very easy accessible to all code here. And that's very nice for beginners. We have easy access to all. But when we get better and better and we learn later CPP files, this is a very bad practice because it can conflict with other code names and other scopes and so on. But at the start, no problem. We are right now here on CPP, but still we will also use many locals variables. I will try during the code to use many local variables also. But we have to be careful that local variables are a little bit more difficult to access than global variables. That's why most beginners throw them on the top and then access it very easy, right? They can use all the global variables in local places, change them. They are changed then in global space here, and then they can use it in another locals scope and then so on. So, but don't worry, we will learn this during more videos. Just remember, global variables at start makes no problem as long as you use it in one file, which we are going to use. But if we learn other CPP files to use with headers and CPP files and so on, then we will change this. Yeah, then we will not use so much global variables. Then we are going and use them really more local and only in the local scope, so that we have a special access to them. All right, I think with that said, I stop here. That was long, but very important, and we have, of course, to train this, but we will continue with more keywords, and from now on, this will be our next important training place. And yeah, if you have any questions, ask in the comments. If not, perfect. And we see us in the next video. Bye.